Bradley from Ramsey County, Manager Steve Wegman from Anoka County, and Manager Jess Robertson from Anoka County as well. And then over here we have Adam Neese from Houston Engineering, our drainage engineer. I am Ashley Ritchie, the Public Drainage Inspector for the Rice Creek Watershed District. I'll hand it off to our president to jump right in.
First of all, thank you for coming. Do I have a microphone? Do I need a microphone?
No, use your dad voice.
Here, would you like?
No, I just want, at our normal
No, don't touch them.
meetings, they yell at me. Just leave it there.
Yep.
So anyway, thank you for coming. The purpose of this hearing today is to receive comments from the public on the district's proposed plan to repair Ramsey County Ditch 4. Part of our responsibility is to decide whether to repair that ditch, and also how to recover the cost of that repair if we undertake it. I want you to note that we are recording this. The order of business for hearings is as follows. Ms. Ritchie, District Public Drainage Inspector, who just introduced herself, will present information related to the district and its management of public drainage systems. The district engineer's report and review of this portion of the public drainage system and the proposed repairs, and a review of the proposed method of allocating repair costs, including what we call water management district charges, which are what we recover part of the cost directly from those individuals who have property that directly benefit, that directly drain to that ditch. The remaining portion of the cost we recover through ad valorem taxes, which we recover on all property within the district. After the initial presentation, I will open the hearing for your comments and on the proposed repair and related matters. The repair of the main channel of Ramsey County Ditch 4 is based on the requirements of Minnesota statutes, Chapter 103E. There will be no tests on that, by the way. And the board's obligation as drainage authority to maintain the public drainage system. Board's consideration of water management district charges is based on our existing policies, which we've adopted and contained in our watershed management district plan, which is we adopt a new plan every 10 years. For Ramsey County District 4, the board has established a water management district which charges may be made on benefited property, those properties that drain directly to the ditch. To pay a portion of the cost, the engineer in these proceedings has evaluated the board's charge and cost allocation policy and is making a recommendation on the appropriate allocation cost between the water management district, those benefited properties, and ad valorem total district property costs, based on the nature of the work that we've proposed. The hearing today relates to the condition of the drainage system, its need for repair, and the utility of the proposed repair. Our decision to repair must be based on the merits and utility of the repair after considering the repair report and evidence presented to determine whether the work is necessary for the best interest of the affected properties and whether the work will be conducive to public health and promote the general welfare of the watershed. For the cost allocation and charges, we consider the scope of the work being undertaken and whether both the allocation and charges as recommended are consistent with the board's policies. During the public hearing, managers may ask questions of staff or consultants making presentations and of commenters in order to clarify any testimony. In addition, if a member of the public asks a question and a manager believes that a response from a district staff or district consultant can help resolve the question or enrich the testimony, manager may ask me to have that appropriate staff member or consultant speak to the question. Managers' expressions of their positions and general discussions concerning the subject of public hearing should be avoided during the public comment period. This is the time to hear from the public. Board discussions will occur after all members of the public have had a chance to speak. The public comment period has been closed. Board discussion may occur and be concluded at a subsequent meeting or at this meeting as the board decides. If a member of the public would like to make a comment, and we certainly encourage you to do so, please address the board when I recognize you. State your name and address for the record. If you have a specific question concerning your proposed repair, cost allocation, or charges, we may ask our administrator, the engineer, or legal counsel to respond. If you have anything in writing, ask that you submit that before the close of the public hearings, which I will then take that written document into the record, and we'll make sure that it's considered at the appropriate time. To ensure that all wishing to speak, we're not gonna worry about time tonight. We don't have anything to go. We'll pass those comments. Would any members of the board have any remarks or comments before we start? Hearing none. With that, we're ready to hear from members of the public who wish to comment. Again, please state your name and address.
Presentation first.
Yes. Well, I already asked if they had questions. Where did I jump, John?
Colby has to talk before
Oh.
you ask them.
John, our lawyer wants
It's
to
in
talk.
here, it's tough, so.
Miss Ashley.
All right,
It's in the brackets.
all right, there you go.
Turn to Ashley.
I forgot to.
Ms. Ritchie.
Thank you, Mr. President. 1 second here, because I need to get the presenter the right permissions.
In this brief pause, Ryan, can you hear the people speaking? Is it loud enough? It's good?
I
Thank
could hear him, but I can't hear her.
you.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Oh.
Mr.
Yeah.
President, while
I found
Ashley's, while Ashley's getting organized, we might as well run through the notices that were given for the hearing this evening.
All right,
Notices were published and mailed and posted on the board's website, and posted at the district offices. The publication occurred in the Pioneer Press newspaper on November 16th, 23rd, and 30th. Mailed notice was provided on November 30th by postcard to owners of all property within the watershed of, sub-watershed of Ramsey County Ditch 4, so everyone that would potentially be subject to a charge received a postcard notice of tonight's hearing. And then we also sent a written notice to Ramsey County, the Ramsey County Soil and Water Conservation District, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Board of Water and Soil Resources, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, the cities of Arden Hills, Falcon Heights, and Roseville, all again received a mailed notice. And then there was an email notice to everyone who has previously requested that type of notice from the district. And then it was posted on the district's website and posted on the office, at the office, beginning on November 13th and remaining through tonight's hearing.
thank you.
That does satisfy all of the requirements of the statute that we have, plus local policy for notices for hearings of this type.
Ritchie, you ready to go?
Yes. All right. Can you guys hear me now? All right. Sounds good. So as we stated, we're here for the Ramsey County Ditch, or the RCD4 repair. This is the public hearing, and we're the Rice Creek Watershed District. Oh, there we go. A little bit of delay there. So just some quick background on the Watershed District itself. The Watershed District does serve as the public drainage authority, which means that we are responsible for maintaining and inspecting the drainage systems within our boundary. There are about 116 miles of public drainage systems within our jurisdiction. The Watershed District does cover about 186 square miles. You can kind of see on the map there, we go all the way south to Birchwood Village and Matamidi on the southeast side, and then up to Columbus and Forest Lake on the north side. And then obviously we're down here in Roseville, and we all ultimately outlet to the Mississippi River through the Lock Lake Dam. The red box indicates where we are in the system currently. And so it's our job as the drainage authority to protect the landowner's rights to drain to these systems and maintain the system so that they have access to that. Additional activities that the Watershed District does do, other than just public drainage system management, is water quality as well as flood control, and then also we have regulatory programs for permitting.
All right, very good. I'll kind of launch into the rest of the presentation here on RCD4. We'll go through the repair report and the WMD Water Management District charge and the establishment of it. As already discussed, if there are questions or comments, there will be a formal comment period at the end of this presentation. So if you wouldn't mind please holding your comments and questions till the end. We'll look at the standard for decision. We'll look at a brief timeline to date on the system itself. We'll kind of look at the current conditions of Ramsey County Ditch 4, and we'll look at the proposed plans to repair the drainage system and the cost associated with that repair and how we're allocating those costs. And then we'll walk through a brief high-level schedule for the repair, and then, as stated, we'll have a comment period at the end. Generally, as a quick overview, the why do we maintain the public drainage system? It does fulfill the Drainage Authority's responsibility as required by statute, by Minnesota law. And then it provides predictable drainage and stormwater management. We'll talk through that here more in a moment. There is a public health and welfare component to repairing the ditch and keeping it functioning in good working order, as well as protection of infrastructure that we have, whether that's culverts or utilities, etc. In many cases, we do small maintenance for isolated issues that come up on the ditch. Maybe there's a small slough in the ditch or a tree that fell down, and we'll go out there and we'll do a small maintenance. Then for larger system-wide issues that we're seeing on Ramsey County Ditch 4, we'll do a full repair, which is what we're talking about tonight here. So generally, what do we mean by that predictable drainage and stormwater management? A lot of times we look at different recurrence intervals for storm events. So I've listed there from the top to the bottom, the 2-year storm event. That's your typical drainage event. If you're looking at about 2 to 3 inches in your rain gauge after about a day, that's kind of your standard drainage event that we hope to convey through these ditches. Your traditional stormwater event is more of that 10-year rainfall event. That's going to be 4 inches plus in your rain gauge after about a day. And then we have those FEMA level floodplain 100-year type events. That's going to be a 7 inches plus. A lot of times that is associated with a snowmelt runoff event. So just to kind of keep everybody on the same page, the repairs we're talking about tonight will have almost no effect on those 100-year FEMA type floodplains. So we should expect almost no change there. We're really focusing on those 10-year and below events that we believe this ditch can convey adequately. So that's kind of what we're talking about here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the standard for decision. We'll have Attorney John Kolb speak a little bit about the statutes. We look at are repairs necessary, and then we look at are the repairs as recommended in the best interest of the public, those who use the system, for an outlet for drainage. So I'll pass it to John here for a moment.
Thank you, Adam. Mr. President, Board, we can all look at the standard that's up on the screen, including the audience. If you can't see the screen, we can articulate it directly. The President also alluded to this in his opening remarks. But the consideration of whether the repairs are necessary really looks at what is the function that the drainage system historically provides and is needed to provide for the benefit of everybody that is discharging anything toward that system. And in this case, the system is unique in as much as it is supporting a lot of the stormwater management in the city of Roseville. And so if this ditch falls into a state of disrepair, we run into conveyance issues with that stormwater, which again, as Adam pointed out, they're designed to take a 10-year storm off the landscape. The ditch is intended to convey a 2-year storm, so we already have a bit of a disconnect historically. But if this system gets out of repair, then we have localized flooding adjacent to the ditch and in other parts of the city and the adjacent watershed. So the consideration of how efficiently it's functioning is important as in terms of determining whether the repairs are necessary. I want to be very clear to the public that we are not improving this. This is a piece of infrastructure that's existed on the landscape for a century or more, and we are simply restoring its hydrologic function because it has begun to deteriorate. And the engineer will give you some examples of how that deterioration has manifested itself over the years. And then the question becomes, is it in the best interest of the lands affected? And so we look at what is the economic and physical consequence of a failure to maintain this drainage system. And oftentimes we see this in terms of property damage, damage to infrastructure, inefficient flows of water. So as you're sitting here tonight, you want to think about those things, take in all the evidence, take in everything that the engineer is telling you about the physical condition of the ditch. And then I'll just leave you with what the drainage code actually says, which is the drainage authority shall make findings and order the repair to be made if the drainage authority determines from the repair report and all evidence presented at the public hearing that the repairs recommended are necessary for the best interest of affected landowners. And in this case, again, it's the area that sends its stormwater to the alignment of this system. We are here tonight for another reason, and that is to determine and for the board to consider how it wants to allocate costs between district-wide charges and landowner direct district-wide tax funds and landowner direct charges. And again, as the president alluded to in his opening remarks, you have adopted and incorporated into your watershed management plan a policy for that allocation, and the engineer will cover what that policy, how that policy's been utilized in the past. You do have discretion to alter that based on what you hear this evening, and other factors that you may consider. And then we also then we do that allocation, but then also is to review how the engineer has determined relative runoff from various properties and classified those properties in order to assign a charge value based on the cost of the repairs that are being proposed. So you're doing two things tonight in terms of consideration, and ultimately you will end up entering an order, either not going forward or going forward, and then if you go forward, your order will also contain your allocation and the imposition of those charges. If there's no questions of me, I believe the engineer's going to go over the watershed area and the condition of the ditch.
Thank you, John. Just a quick overview here of the system. I've highlighted in red the portion of RCD4 that we are looking to repair. The repair starts on the downstream or north side of Oasis Pond. We are flowing north for this ditch, and we flow north through Little Lake Johanna and into Johanna Lake. And so that is the portion that we're looking to repair with this project. We do serve residential, commercial, and industrial uses for this ditch. A very brief history for recent events on RCD4. In 2010, there was pond maintenance for Oasis Pond. In 2013, there was some tree and deadfall removals. It was a bit of a recurring nightmare in 2016 and 2019 as well. In the spring of 2018, the ditch did experience some flooding at multiple locations. I was not personally involved with the project at that time, but some of you are familiar with it. At that time, in 2018 and 2019, the district and the board launched into a historical review of Ramsey County Ditch 4, and we looked at various things. What was the historic profile of the ditch? What was the historic established right-of-way contemplated for construction of the ditch, and that sort of thing. It establishes kind of our legal boundary for which we can repair the ditch to without calling it an improvement of capacity or grade. And then in 2021, there was a partial transfer of the ditch to the city of Roseville. I'll talk about that here more in a second. There was a portion of the open channel ditch that was replaced with subsurface drainage tile, and that was south of Terrace Drive here. And I'll show that on the screen. Again, the dashed blue portion is the open channel ditch that we are looking to repair now. And on the bottom of the image there is the red dashed line, and that is the portion south of Terrace Drive that was converted from open channel to subsurface tile, and that was transferred to the city of Roseville. As far as the repair that we're looking at now, again, downstream or north of Oasis Pond, what we are seeing on the ditch is excessive tree canopy shading. It's preventing sunlight from reaching the channel banks, which is preventing the growth of tall grasses and deep-rooted vegetation. We're seeing kind of sparse tree vegetation on the banks, and that's not sufficient to hold the earth on the banks from running into the ditch. We are seeing that the RCD4 has a relatively steep grade, and so any sediment that's coming off of the ditch banks is actually not accumulating in the channel. It's continuing to run downstream into Little Lake Johanna, and that is a problem that we're looking to correct for this repair. And then also with the repair, we need to establish a maintenance corridor for access for district staff to get in there when those small maintenance activities are needed. If there's a tree that falls into the ditch, there's simply no way that we can even get in there to clean it out at this point. So that's a big part of what we're doing here. Just a few slides to show us a few pictures of what the conditions are on the ditch. We did a site walkthrough a little over a year ago and walked the entire site to kind of look at project access points and condition of the ditch. So we saw a lot of interesting things. There's some recreational trails that have kind of popped up. The public is using them and maybe shouldn't be. We see gravel paths, we see fences, we see retaining walls that are in close proximity to the ditch. These are all challenges that we're going to have to overcome for construction. Again, there's kind of a impromptu trail that has sprung up that is not intended to be part of this project. So I know that question has come up several times at previous meetings. Again, a couple of pictures showing the excessive tree canopy shading out those ditch banks. It is preventing those grasses from growing and those deep-rooted vegetation from being established, and that's making the banks susceptible to erosion. So a big component of this repair is clearing out trees to allow that sunlight onto the banks. At the outlet of Oasis Pond, there is a concrete grouted spillway weir, and there's also riprap in the channel. At one point in time, the channel was nearly continuously lined with grouted riprap. Most of that has since broken up. However, it is still in good condition. It's still providing some good function to prevent erosion of the channel. And we would intend to simply leave that in place as is. So our recommended repair for RCD4 is to stabilize the ditch banks and create a maintenance corridor. This would involve tree clearing between the channel banks and for about a 25-foot corridor on one side of the ditch. We would be removing any deadfalls, any trees that have fallen over into the channel, and then we'd be looking to stabilize the bank slopes through seeding and potentially some erosion control blanket for those really troublesome spots. For this project, we did have some regulatory concerns that we had to work through. The project does traverse 3 public waters. That's Oasis Pond, Little Lake Johanna, and Johanna Lake. We do have no work planned within those public waters or wetlands, and we have no wetland impacts resulting from the proposed repairs. Again, as John mentioned, we are not making the ditch deeper or wider or steeper than it was originally constructed, so we're not increasing the capacity beyond what was originally contemplated. We're simply bringing it back to those originally established conditions. We do have a National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, NPDES stormwater permit for the construction might be required. Typically is when we're kind of disturbing this amount of acreage for the project. We also looked at threatened and endangered species for the repair, and we have 3 known state-listed threatened species near the project area. That's the jumping spider, the picture on top, and the caddisfly is the picture on the bottom, and the kinnikinick dewberry, which is a plant. I don't have a picture of that here today. So general impact avoidance for these species mainly comes down to construction timing and being outside of those windows that are roosting or breeding periods for these species. There are several best management practices that we can do with the repair and general species awareness. We will be including within the construction packet the information on these species. And then the Natural Heritage Information System review, the NHIS review, has been completed already for the repair. Just a little bit about what to expect. We had a recent project, or a similar project recently this summer. It was a ditch repair project that included tree clearing and a little bit of sedimentation removal in the bottom of the channel. Here are just 2 pictures from that repair that occurred this summer. The picture on the left is kind of the during construction. There's a lot of activity going on. There's trees that have been cut down. They're kind of falling all over the place. It's kind of showing that it does look a little chaotic during the construction process. The picture on the right is roughly the same location, and you can sort of see how that seed has been kind of established pretty well on those banks. The picture itself is fairly green. That was just taken early October here. We're pretty pleased with how that vegetation has come up, and if you really kind of look deep into the ditch and in kind of the background of the picture, that whole bank is really nice and green, and we're seeing a lot of good stability from that deep-rooted grasses. So that's kind of in essence what we're planning for this repair as well. Something similar here. As far as the management of the ditch bank, generally this project involves no cleaning out of the channel. Again, we're not seeing that sediment accumulation in the channel, so we shouldn't have too much spoil that we're digging out at all. But generally, we'll be using a native seed mix for this repair. This is kind of a picture of another project. It's got kind of that straw mulch placed right before the vegetation gets fully established. Seed has been laid, but no green has showed up. This is kind of an interim condition, so we'll see this condition on this particular repair as well. We'll be using herbicide for maintenance. When they cut down the trees, they'll paint a dyed herbicide on the tree trunks to prevent them from regrowing. So that'll help reduce the amount of maintenance that's needed into the future. And then we always tell the landowners we're highly recommending just leave the tall grasses. Please, please don't mow them. And please do not place any fences or sheds or any other objects in the right-of-way. It creates quite a headache for maintenance staff into the future as we go in to do minor maintenance and minor repair if there's need that arises. Okay, so on to our opinion of probable construction cost. These are what we've put together from a whole slew of other projects. We look at what we're assuming the potential bids will come in at from contractors. These numbers will change once we actually get contractors' bid. But the numbers we're coming up with so far for actual construction costs on the ditch are about $150,000. We have engineering, legal, and administrative fees of about $55,000. And then we've thrown a 20% contingency on construction costs for about $30,000. And that brings us to a total of approximately $235,000. Again, those numbers will change once we get contractors bidding on the project here. So, project funding, how are we actually going to come up with that $235,000? So this was already alluded to at the intro, but right now we are looking at a potential split between a water management district and ad valorem taxes across the whole district. So there's potential that we will decide to, or the board will decide to split up these charges, and we'll take all of the drainage area for Ramsey County Ditch 4, and we'll assess each parcel a certain portion of dollars based on a handful of factors. That includes the area of each parcel, that includes the land use of each parcel. We've taken a look at, based on the land use, we've basically assumed a amount of runoff that happens from each parcel, and that runoff then contributes to the ditch and creates kind of that burden on the ditch, or another way to say that is a benefit for that parcel. And so we sort of look at a lot of different factors and then associate all those factors with an actual dollar cost for the project. It is worth noting that landowners have been charged already once for the prior repair, which again was that upstream portion, upstream of Terrace Drive, that was converted from open channel to subsurface tile. At that time, landowners were noticed that there would be a future charge for this next phase of the project, for this portion of it. And at that time, we did not have this repair ordered yet. We did not have a project estimated cost. And so now we are there, having the project potentially ordered and an estimated cost. And so we're coming up with that second charge to the landowners on the system. So again, Rice Creek Board does have discretion to modify this approach. In the past, we have had success with a 60-40 split. That is what we are recommending again, but there is freedom to change that. And that's, again, nearly all landowners pay that are within the watershed of Ramsey County Ditch 4. That's residential, that's also commercial, and that's also cities and counties. So I've already touched on some of these already, but this kind of shows you the size of the watershed contributing to RCD4. There is quite a bit of land contributing. We are south of Rosedale Mall, so that's kind of gives you the scale of the watershed that we're pulling from. It is noted that parcels are only charged if they drain to the ditch and are within the Rice Creek legal boundary. Again, we can talk through the specifics and the details if anybody is interested to get into the weeds about how we actually calculate the charge, but it kind of boils down to area and land use and looking at the amount of impervious surface, rooftops, driveways, that sort of thing, how much water is running off of each parcel, and based on that amount of water, there's an associated charge. For those who really want to, I have 47 pages here tonight of every single parcel. So if you really want to know, we can talk later about what your specific charge would be on your parcel. But generally, if you're, let's say, a half an acre on your property, your charge is going to be pretty minimal, to the tune of maybe between $25 and $100 total. So again, that's all parcels are paying into the system to help contribute to that percentage of the water management district charge for this project. Okay, almost done here. Just a quick timeline. So back in October, we had a public information meeting. Some of you were there. That went pretty well. We are now currently at the public hearing. That's the meeting that's going on presently. Next week, on December 13th, the board will consider the resolution and ordering of the repair and establishment of that water management district charge. As far as final plan development and specification writing and bidding the project, that is coming this winter, so into 2024 here. And then as we get closer to the spring, 2024, we'll be meeting with landowners that are within the construction zone. We've actually had several landowner meetings already. So if that's you, you can contact us and we'll get a meeting scheduled and talk through what to expect and where there'll be trucks driving around and all that sort of thing. And then construction, we're anticipating about a year from now. So fall, early winter 2024. So dates, of course, are approximate and subject to change based on unforeseen circumstances, but that's our general expected timeline. Okay, so that is all I had. I believe there's a formal comment period now.
So,
Back to you.
first thing, any board members have any questions?
No.
So this is your opportunity for the public. You know, stand there with a little microphone. We encourage you to come forward, state your name and address. I will also point out that when we are done doing that, we're going to have our staff here. They are more than happy, as Adam suggested, for example, he can tell you for your property what your charge would be specifically. They have, I assume you have maps so that they'd be able to look at where your property is on it. But what we really would like to know is if we've missed something. Is there a concern that we haven't addressed so far? Are there specific things you want us to consider when we go through? Because our staff will work with you, try to minimize the impact of this work. We are not happy about removing trees. We have to do it to get our equipment through, but we will work with you to try to do as least harm to that as possible. So with those opening comments, I encourage all four of you to come forward and take an opportunity to talk to us about this.
Well, I've got some questions.
Certainly, come forward, please, and state your name and address.
How forward do you want me to go?
Podium, please.
The podium. There's a po-
There's a podium. There's a stand in the middle.
He's partially deaf.
Yep.
I'm Jim Priesnitz. I live at 1670 West Lydia, right around station, 27, 28. And I guess my question is, you said something about a 25-foot corridor. I'm not sure if that's all on the east bank or if that's, 25 feet of corridor, that's going to take up almost all of your easement on the east side of the bank, as I understand it. And that access road was originally established when the ditch was widened in like 1993 or 1994. So, I mean, it exists, so there's not that much you have to do, I think, other than remove trees and brush to retain that corridor. I think the access is still up off of County Road C2 and Lincoln Drive there. And so I guess my big question is, you talk about tree removal within the channel. Could you define channel? How wide? Or, most of the trees are growing down that I think you're concerned about are at water level, which is right, like both sides of the culvert. And I don't get upstream that much, so I don't know what's happening up there. So I don't know if you're talking about removing trees because of the tree canopy. That's going to be like virtually every tree within the drainage ditch. So some of those trees are like right on the property line, and they're like anchoring that steep bank that became very steep when the ditch was widened. So I'm a little concerned about that.
Adam, would you care to respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you. Yes, the The width of the channel does vary a little bit, but the limits of the tree clearing will go from top of bank to top of bank. There will be quite a lot of trees that we remove within that corridor. And then, as you suggested, it's kind of that 20 to 25 feet working access corridor on the one side. On this project, it is almost entirely on the east side of the ditch. Depending on what we do between Little Lake Johanna and Lake Johanna, if we work in there, it'll be on the west side, but everywhere else on the system is on the east side of the ditch. The access corridor that's there now will be maintained if there is need if the contractor is challenged to get into that corridor, they do have the option to do minor grading in order to get down there. Sometimes there are steep slopes to get to that access path. We don't anticipate much grading at all. It is mostly a tree clearing exercise. So if we want to, we could go look out at your property at the top of that steep bank, and we can really dial in that location of where we're going to be clearing those trees. If it's quite steep, that's where that erosion control blanket comes in to help armor that slope.
Well, there was a control blanket there. I don't know how it survived after all these years, but,
Yeah.
And because, the silver maples obviously have taken over that, the whole ditch. But I've been, trying to plant sugar maples at the top. I don't know if it's, it's on the borderline of easement and my property line. So, I don't know what's going to go on there.
Yeah, I would recommend setting up a site visit, and we will actually come out to your site, and we can point to each tree and look at the trees and decide if we're able to save some of those maples that you've planted.
Yeah, and then I've been planting ferns closer down to the actual water channel, which I don't know, they're not deep rooted, but they do serve a function. At least they look good rather than a bunch of weeds. I guess those are all going to be removed then and replaced with grasses?
Generally, they probably will be destroyed with the project as the contractor is coming through and, tearing down trees and such. They will be planting a native grass mixture. It is a DOT ditch mix, so it's not a turf grass mix by any means, but kind of cross your fingers, you might get some wildflowers popping up with that mix too. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is that those trees provide a lot of shade canopy from, the eastern sunrise. So I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I just, I needed clarity on where the trees are going to be cleared. I'm not super pleased that they're going to go all the way to the top of the channel. So.
Mr. President,
Yes.
maybe Ashley could describe the process that we go through with the landowners prior to construction to just identify any specific concerns and to really highlight for them the actual work that's going to occur on your specific property.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll be following the public hearing and the ordering of the project or the repair. We will be reaching out we'll have another informational meeting before construction starts at all. That we'll have final plan sets at that point. And the best thing is to do, like Adam said, to do those site visits with us. We'll walk through and we'll essentially draw that line for you so you can see where, from this line down on the bank is where trees will go, from this line up is where they'll stay. And then there is some flexibility there, especially if there are trees that you'd like to see saved, or even if there's an extra one that's on that line that wants to be removed as well. So it's hard to visualize, and I know I know where you're at on that system. It's really hard to visualize when you've got a very tall, steep bank, kind of what that line, yeah. So this, if you're envisioning the channel, it's hard when that bank turn is different. You guys have a little bit uniquer spot. So, but yeah, we'll be reaching out for an informational meeting. So look for a postcard, in the spring, summertime. I have business cards. We will happily meet with you guys at any point in time to walk through the property and just take a peek at what you're looking at and what your concerns are and give you that better visual on your property of what's going on. And then we'll have update lists as well for any kind of repair, construction updates as we move forward. So there'll be several opportunities where we reach out, and then obviously at any point in time you can contact us. But we're very strongly encouraging those site walkthroughs so that we can give you that visual directly on your property.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have 3 other people, I assume he thought, you have anything to add to his comments?
I'm sorry, sir.
Do you have anything to add to his comments?
No, I know exactly what he's talking about. It's
Okay.
a very steep bank. We've been trying to keep it from degrading for years.
Yeah.
And we would like it to be undegraded with things that we would enjoy looking at, since our backyard fronts the ditch.
We have 2 more people from the public here. Would either of you like to come forward and speak? Welcome to. Sir?
We do have an online.
You good?
Oh, I guess one question.
Okay, good. Please state your name and address, please.
I'm Rob Barona, 1655 Stanbridge Avenue. And I have the vacant lot next to us. I don't know if you're familiar with that? Yep. Okay. When would be a good time to have you come out? Would you still be coming out this late fall or wait till spring?
Yes, I can speak to that. Staff are happy to come out at any point in time. We'll just make sure to wear mittens and hats if it's cold.
Okay, all right. I have to get out of here. I gotta pick someone up from the airport. Could I get a card from you?
Yep.
Now? And then, and then the project would be starting next fall around this time or a little sooner?
Yeah, there's some time yet. There's no rush to have this conversation. But
Okay.
we're definitely willing to do the site visit
Okay.
when it works for you.
Great, all right, thank you.
Yes, state your name and, this is our district engineer.
Yes, Chris Otterness with Houston Engineering. I work with Adam there. In answer of one of your questions earlier about the removal of trees and what that might do to the bank, I think this might have been said earlier, but just to be clear, when we talk about clearing, we're actually planning to cut the trees down within about 2 inches of the ground slope and then leave the stump in with the slope. And that'll be really important because if we were to remove the slope, that could potentially destabilize the slope, so having that root mass and that stump in there will actually help hold that together. But we're going to get it cut down so it's about 2 inches within the slope, so it's not going to bother any equipment. Will be out of the way, and then we start getting those grasses growing up in there, and that will really help with the stabilization of the slope. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Chris. You have an online person
Yep.
here. Oh. Hand up. I see that. Laura, can you hear?
Hello, can you hear me all right? Can you hear me?
Would you like to make comments?
Hello, can you hear me?
She unmuted.
We're not hearing you.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
We're working to see if we can figure out why we're not.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Mr. President,
Yes.
as they're working on the,
Oh.
this gentleman may have another.
Rob Barona, again,
Yes, Rob, go ahead.
1655 Stanbridge. As far as accessing properties, will you have to come onto our properties, like in between homes, to get like onto our side of the ditch?
Go ahead.
In some cases, yes, but hopefully not. We are looking at access points for the project coming off of main roads, and they would come off of main roads and work down the ditch and then come straight back out from where they came. There may be some tree clearing and chipping that happens They'll be hauling all trees and any chipped trees off-site, but generally they'll, again, from main access points off of main roads, work down the ditch and then come straight back.
Right. My grade is pretty steep
Sure.
on both properties there.
Report.
Now, will they be coming in off of Lincoln Drive also? Where, you know, where that walking path is, that's been created?
That's a likely spot that they will. We don't know for sure yet.
Yep.
We'll be talking with the contractor once that becomes established on if they have preferred access points, and we'll be helping kind of guide them to where we think are logical access points as
Okay.
well.
All right, great. Well, I'll be getting in contact with you.
Sounds
So, all right, thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
So the recommendation is have her call, and we'll put her on speakerphone.
Hello, can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yeah, other
Hello?
people in the meeting can hear her. So, okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. My name is Laura Lagbosh. I live at 1677 Stanbridge Avenue. I had a question about the access, specifically around the Lydia Avenue, near Sandy and Jim Presnis's place who were speaking earlier. I know that it was stated at the beginning that, you know, a recreational path is
Yep.
not part of the scope of this project. But given the fact that it's sort of a de facto public access, I wonder if there'd be any consideration.
Public water that made note of, Oasis Pond, and then.
Sorry, I will call the phone number that's been written into the comments.
The board would like to hear from the engineer the condition of the ditch. Is it legally present in those locations, sediment load, nutrient, its function as a part of the system?
Adam, if you'd like to have, it's in the report, I've read your report, so, but
Yes.
from the public standpoint, why don't you explain what happens when we come to those three public waters?
Sure. Yes, thank you. That's an excellent question. So as we work through those public waters, there will be potentially, I've got it listed here on the plans, we're essentially doing no work in those public waters. So, you know, if there were tree clearing or what have you that we needed to do, we could do that. In this case, we don't need to. So essentially the function of the ditch is maintained through those public waters, but there is no work contemplated for within those boundaries of those public waters. I don't know if there's more to be said, but
I'm just trying to figure out what we should do about our one person online. She's currently muted.
Mr. President, I can.
Hello, Laura.
Okay, looks like she's on.
Okay. All right, one sec. Let me get you on speakerphone. Okay.
Okay, let me back away from my computer so I don't give myself an echo. Yeah, my name is Laura Lagbosh, and I live at 1677 Stanbridge Avenue. So my question was about the access, specifically leading up to Lydia Avenue, there by Sandy and Jim Presnis's house. I know that you guys said earlier that, you know, a public recreational path is not part of the scope of this project. But given the fact that this is sort of a de facto public access, I'm wondering whether it could be considered to make the access on the east side, along with the current maintenance corridor, a safer embankment rather than sort of encouraging the people who are, you know, dog walking and so forth to be cutting through on the west side across the Presnitz's property. And I'm hoping that something like that would also sort of change the messaging that I feel sort of exists around that culvert under Lydia Avenue, which seems like inviting sort of ne'er-do-wells and vandalism instead of a sort of easily, close by but sort of forgotten looking location. If that could be presented as more of a well-maintained open corridor, which I hope that this maintenance project will support. So I guess my question is, would it be possible to have a more sort of walkable grade on the east side up to Lydia Avenue?
At this time, that is private property, the whole area where that makeshift trail is. So it's something that if the landowners who are interested, who own the property in that area and are interested in making a public access way, it's a discussion I think that staff can have with the city and with those landowners. But as a function of this repair, it is not something that the Drainage Authority has the capacity or the authority to do.
Okay. Thanks very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Nope.
Any other comments or questions?
That's all that. Thank you.
Anyone? In Minnesota, of course, you have to ask 3 times. I've already asked twice. Anyone out there who would like to further comment before we close this public aspect of this? Hearing none. With that, we're ready. We're ready to hear from members of the. Please state blah, 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 blah. I've got to get myself where I am. Anyone have any written materials that they wish to provide? Hearing none. All right. There being no further testimony in public, I close the public comment portion of the hearing. At this point, I invite discussion from the board. There's a recommended action by our staff, which says, board directs staff to prepare an order directing repair of a public drainage system, allocating costs between charges and those be water management district charges and ad valorem taxes, and establishing water management district charges consistent with the public hearing comments and guidance from the board, and move to set December 13th, 2023, which is the upcoming in 1 week. To which the board will continue the public hearing for the purpose of considering and adopting an order. I have a discussion on that.
Second, Mr. President.
Well, I did make a motion. I was just telling you that's the staff's recommended action. I can make that into a motion. Just want to make sure, see if anyone had any
That
comments.
was the motion, wasn't it?
Well, they could, of course, they.
Paraphrase.
Paraphrase.
It's close.
Very
Close enough. Close enough. All right, do I have a second to that?
Second, Mr.
All
President.
right. Any further discussion? Any discussion?
Mr. President, I just point out to most of the people that are online or out there that of the 47 pages, I believe Adam said, of tax assessments, that I would say the vast majority, it looks like to me, many of them are $25. So there are some exceptions, like for the school district or for maybe some larger parcels. But I mean, there's just page after page after page of $25 assessment. That's what it is. I think it's safe to everybody to understand that that's it.
Approximately.
Yeah, well, yeah, at this time.
So, with that, then.
Can I just add an item, Mr. President, just to clarify, so, because we have a unique situation next Wednesday, because you also have your truth and taxation, so the meeting is not at its ordinary time. So just for the members of the public that are here, if you want to come and witness the board take an action, it is actually next Wednesday, December 13th at 6:30 PM in the Shoreview City Council Chambers at 4600 Victoria Street North in Shoreview. So usually they have their meetings during the day, but because of the truth and taxation hearing, it's at that evening. And because that's unique, I thought it was maybe important give that specificity to the information.
That's why we bring a lawyer with us. Thank you, John.
Oh, gosh.
All right. All in favor say aye.
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 That's all of us.
That's everybody.
That's everybody, so it passes 4-0. I believe then we are adjourned. We could have a motion to adjourn, please.
President, I'll move to adjourn the
Second.
meeting until the 13th of
13th of
December,
February,
at
6:30 p.m.
6:30 p.m. at the
City
Shoreview City Council.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mother.
Again, for those of you who would like to talk to our staff, they're sitting right here. They would love to talk to you. And thank you for coming.